Hi, my name is Vinny from Bellwether team. In today's video, I'm going to show you the simplest way of creating materials in the ePMX, especially when you have a huge list of items to be added in ePMX. You may not want to go into the material screen and create those items one by one. Therefore, we have an option through which you can import the file in one simple process and have all your items created quickly. For that, few checkpoints that we're going to cover in this video. Let's have a look. You go to Utilities, Import to maintain material items. Once you land on the screen, you will be having three options. Input character set, which is defaultly set to Windows 1252, and you need not to make any changes to that. The only thing you got to do is to choose your file from your desktop and click on import. Now before we go to that process, what if you don't have any format in which you need to import the file? So you can simply click on the template icon. That will give you a blank Excel file with just the header, and then you can fill up the rest of the details for each of the column. So I have one file prepared for this video today where I have added the transaction code as A because I want to add all of these items. The corporation, it's one of the important part. In the file, the corporation code has to be the same as the corporation setup in ePMX. Item code. Now this item code is an internally assigned numeric code for each of your item. You can also keep it the same as the vendor item code, which is mentioned in column M over here. It's the company choice how they want to maintain it. Some of the cases client wants to maintain it with their own item codes and have it a uniform sequential order. So I'm going to use that format as of right now. The item description I have added based on the item information. After the item description, another important column in this template is unit of measure, which is the method in the unit of measure in which I'm going to purchase this item with my vendor. And sequentially in the next column is the standard unit cost, which is based on the unit of measure defined in the template. Further which, all of these columns are optional. So I'm going to focus on the primary vendor code, though it is optional too, because you can always select your vendor, the appropriate vendor, while you create your purchase order. However, if you want to pre-code the vendors or your preferred vendors, you can always do that. So I have taken an example and I have filled in the vendor codes. Now what is vendor code? It is the internally assigned vendor ID. Like currently we are assigning internal item code for each of the vendor item. Likewise, each vendor is set up in ePMX with its own internal ID. If you don't remember that by heart, you can always run a report in ePMX, the vendor file report, and get this information out like I have on my screen. And looking at it, I find that the first item going to be purchased with vendor 105, which is air power. So that's how I can define the vendor code for each of my item, or I can keep it blank also, and at the time of PO creation can select the vendor. Column M is the vendor item number. So if I have the vendor item number, I can update that, as ePMX gives you the flexibility to show the information in a purchase order that your vendor want to see. So for example, vendor want to see their item code number. So if he provides you that sort of information, that can be added in column M. The next column is stock item. Now, with this column, we basically define whether the item is going to be the stock item, the inventoryable item, or not. So, as a sample, I have taken some items as no, which is not going to be part of inventory, and some of them as yes, which will be a part of my stock. And this depends on that, like if as a company you are using the inventory module or not. Supposedly, if you're not using it, then it can be kept as N for all of the item. UNSPC code, quarterly days, assigned general ledger account, general ledger account level value, all these columns are optional, so I'm going to leave them aside. Column S is also not mandatory, but it is conditionally required. The condition to this column is the approval type you are set up for. If your company is set up for approval type item approval rank, then is the time this will be required, where you can define the first item would require up to what level of approvers. It will require only one approver. The second item require 2 approvers. So the rank basically defines the levels of approvals required for that individual item. And lastly, the column inspection code. If I have set up the inspection codes in my system, I can define them, or I can keep it blank as it's an optional field. Once I'm done filling up and preparing this file, I can go back and as a last checkpoint need to make sure that I save this file to my desktop in .csv format only, as our ePMX system only accepts the .csv format for the import work. Once I'm done preparing my template, I can come back to the import to maintain material item screen and pick the file from the desktop and click on the import. Now system tells me that 29 import records are successfully processed and 0 errored, which means my material file has been imported and the item that I had added to my file are now readily available in the ePMX, and I can go into requisition, pick the item, I can go into purchasing, pick the item and do the further processing of it. So this was all about the import process of the material. This is really a helpful process if you have a bulk list of items to be added in ePMX, and with this easy and user-friendly approach you can have your material items added into the ePMX site. This was all in today's video. Stay tuned. I'm gonna give you more detailing on the import part of ePMX. Thank you.